How's it going, guys? This is Najam. Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm finally going to review the TuxedoComputers Order 15 Gen 2. Now, there's quite a bit to cover, so I'm just going to get straight into it. I want to start off with an introduction. TuxedoComputers is a company based in Germany that makes laptops and desktops that run with the Linux operating system. And I picked the Order 15 Gen 2 because I knew it was going to run on Linux and I could choose my specs. I'm just going to start off with some Q&A because in the unboxing video I did ask if anybody has some questions. So let's get into it. So first question, TuxedoOS versus Arch Linux. For those who don't know, I did install Arch Linux only because I'm an Arch user. Now, what's the difference between TuxedoOS and Arch Linux? Well, Arch Linux is Arch, and for those of you who are new to Linux and want to get into Linux, just stick with TuxedoOS, which comes pre-installed. You can actually have Windows on the TuxedoComputers devices, but I don't recommend it. On the website, it does say they have firmware for Linux and also software for Linux, and as well as drivers for Linux. Now, when I installed Arch Linux on this laptop, the kernel headers were not installed. So if you go into Tuxedo Control Center, it won't show you the fan speeds and also the temperature. And so I got a bit confused because, well, it's Arch Linux and I don't know why I didn't install them. So you have to install them separately, which is just, pacman sudo install Arch Linux headers. Linux headers, and then it just installs them. If you want a laptop that's just ready to go out of the box, and just use TuxedoOS. If you're happy with that, that is a really nice operating system. It's very user friendly. For those of you who want a custom setup, like me, I've got Sway running on mine, and I've got a different scaling and my themes and everything in the way I like it. Install Arch Linux and then install the drivers, which actually are provided by TuxedoComputers. Now, this is going to be a bit of a con, just a small one. I would say the Dell XPS 13 didn't require anything if you install Arch Linux on it, whereas this, although the website does say it's ready to go, that's only the case with TuxedoOS. If you use Arch Linux and you install it yourself, you're going to have to install the drivers, which are very easy to install. I think they've packaged them all into Tuxedo keyboard, and so you can just install that and make the build. It takes about a second on this laptop, and just restart the computer and it'll be all good to go. I mean, you don't have to do it, but I recommend it because it does have some device functionality with the laptop and the keyboard and stuff. The other question is, does it charge via USB-C? The answer is yes, it does. It does have a USB Type-C on the side, and it only works with the Ryzen 5 and the Ryzen 7 CPUs because they have that protocol built in, and you need at least 20 volts at 3.25 amps, and you can charge the device with the USB Type-C power supply. Just to know, there is the power supply for USB Type-C is not provided. You're going to want to get a separate one because they give you the DC or AC in that comes with it. Another question, do I use the numberpad? I don't actually use the numberpad. I did use it when I was playing Euro Truck Simulator 2, and the numberpad allows you to change the camera viewing angles in the game, and that was very helpful. That was very nice, so I don't have to use a trackpad or a mouse. I know it's better to use a mouse, but when you don't have a mouse on you, when you're not at home, then it's easier to just use a touchpad to change the camera viewing angles in that game. I did use it for that. The only other thing I use it for is changing the keyboard brightness, and you can turn the backlight off, and also you can change the modes of the RGB backlighting. That's the only thing I use it for. Other than that, I don't really use it. But you have to remember, this is actually pointed towards business use case. Does the off-center home position affect your comfort or typing? The only thing I don't like on this keyboard is the arrow keys. They just place in a weird way where I can keep it in the control key or the shift key sometimes, and I just have to move a bit on the side. Okay, now let's talk about the design. This is not a sexy laptop. You might want to look at some of the other offerings from Tuxedo, but I will say this is a very handsome looking laptop. It is made with business in mind, so you're not going to be stylish with RGB all over the place and whatever. On the pictures, if you look at it on the website, it doesn't really look all that appealing to some content. It looks very boring, but in real life, it actually looks a little bit stylish. It does look very nice, and especially the build quality. It does on the pictures look plasticky and everything, but it's actually really, really solid. It feels like a brick. It's really, really well built, and it's made out of aluminium, so it's really, really nice. Let's look around the device. You have a Kensington lock. You have 1 gigabit Ethernet RJ45. You've got 2 USB 2 ports, which is very nice to have. I'm not gonna be ungrateful about it. And you also have a micro SD card reader as well as a micro SIM card slot, so you can again LTE module in the laptop. So if you can use mobile network on this, so you don't have to use Wi-Fi, and that means, again, it's made for business use. It's designed for business use. So if you travel around all over the place, you can have internet connection all over it. So it'll be awesome. I'm just going to mention one thing. On the one I have, I did not select the LTE module because I don't go out and about running around streets with the laptop in my hand. The micro SD card slot doesn't work, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's not hooked up, or maybe it comes with the LTE module, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It doesn't work on mine, so yeah, that's just on mine. I don't know. It doesn't work, but it doesn't really bother me. I've got a proper USB card reader. It also has a 3.5mm headset jack, so you can plug microphones and also headphones into it, and a headset, so you can talk on Skype and that. You got the power supply on the other side, obviously. You got HDMI 1.4. Now I'm just going to mention a little bit of specs while I'm pointing these out. This does have HDCP, and by native resolution it goes up to Ultra HD at 30 Hz. It also does Ultra HD at 60 Hz, thanks to the GPU, with Chroma Subsampling. And I'm just going to show you what Chroma Subsampling is on the monitor that I use, which is an Ultra HD monitor. It basically means the red channel and some of the longer frequencies, they look a bit blocky, and that's all. Next to that, it has a USB Type 3 port, 3.2, which is awesome. USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A, that's what it is. And then so you also have the Type C port, so that is USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port. And with the Ryzen 5 and the Ryzen 7 CPUs, if you select them as your in the specs, you do get DisplayPort 1.4 within the USB Type C, and that can actually do maximum, I think it's 8K, so 7680 by 4320 at 60 Hz with Chroma Subsampling. And I'm sure it can do other lower resolutions at native, and pretty cool. I have not used this as a display output, although I do have a Type C output. I just use the HDMI because it's there. I don't know why you would want to take up another USB port. I do plug in my Type C SSD on it, and it is pretty quick and it's nice. The weight of this laptop is 1.65 kgs, and it says it's 2 centimeters thick or thin. But if you look at the bottom, the sides are actually angled. So if you look at it from the side, it looks slimmer than it actually is. But to be fair, it's a nice, slim. It fits into my bag, no problems. So I'm really happy with it. Now let's talk about the specs. The one I chose has a Ryzen 7 5700U processor. It has 8 cores and 16 threads, and I believe it is at 25 watts, which is what it says on the website. Although later on down in the website, it does say 15 to 35 watts. Now the frequency, it shows it goes from 1.8 to 4.3 gigahertz. I've noticed in the Tuxedo control center, you can actually lock it down to 1.4 gigahertz, and I think most of the time when you're doing the thing, that's where it's at. So it goes down to 1.4 gigahertz. The other thing is, I've never really seen it go to 4.3 gigahertz, and this is something that some other users on Reddit have also reported. There's something up with the power supply to the CPU, and it doesn't go all the way up to 4.3 gigahertz. Now, personally, it's not a problem for me because I don't really need that fast. I mean, it's fast enough as it is. If it's under load, I've noticed it just hovering about 4 gigahertz, 3.9 gigahertz. I've only ever noticed it once jump up to 4.3 gigahertz, but that's only for like a half a second or so, and then it just jumps back down. So theoretically, it does go up to 4.3 gigahertz, but it's not going to be 4.3 gigahertz under load or anything like that. Now, in Linux, you can use certain software and certain command line tools to fix that. You can mess about with it, and I've not really bothered because I don't really feel the need to. I'm happy with the performance as it is. It has Intel dual band Wi-Fi 6 AX200 card, which has Wi-Fi and also Bluetooth into it. I have not checked Bluetooth because I don't use Bluetooth. Along with the CPU in this laptop, you do get an iGPU. In this case, in the 5700U, it is AMD Radeon RX Vega graphics, which has 8 GPU cores, and it goes up to 1.9 gigahertz. So that's pretty good for an iGPU, and I did end up doing a little bit of light gaming, just lower the settings a bit, and it's better than having Intel HD graphics. Now, as far as the storage goes, there is only one M.2 SS slot. You can actually either You can either use a SATA SSD on it or an M.2 NVMe SSD, and I've got a 250 gig PCIe SSD in there. Now above the display, which I'm just going to get into in a bit, it does have a 1 megapixel webcam, which also has a microphone integrated, and the maximum resolution is 720p, so it doesn't look, resolution wise it's not all that impressive, but it's better than not having a webcam or a really old VGA type of thing, so whatever. Okay, in better lighting conditions you will get better image quality because there's more light, but you can mess about with it. I think it's perfectly fine for Zoom talks and everything like that, so there's nothing to worry about. I think 720p is alright. You know, for meetings in Microsoft Teams and anything, it'll be fine. And the speakers, it has 2 speakers apparently, which are at 2 watts, but the speakers don't really sound all that good. I don't reckon. No. Now let's talk about the display, which is awesome. So this has a 15.6 inch 1080p display. It has 95% sRGB coverage. It has a 700:1 contrast, and it's about 300 nits. One thing I love about this display is it actually goes down to 48 kilohertz refresh rate. So if you want to save on some battery life, you can actually switch it down to 48 kilohertz and then use that as your normal. It's pretty snappy and everything. I don't really notice much of a difference in normal use case compared to 60 hertz. Now, if you are watching esports or gaming videos and everything at 60 hertz, you might want to switch to 60 hertz on the display and then switch it back to 48 hertz, because I think it might make a big difference in the battery life, and I really like that it has that feature. It's very, very nice. From my experience, the display is actually very nice. The only thing is sometimes when I'm outside or when I'm in the office and it's really, really sunny, 300 nits probably doesn't really push it all that well. I mean, it's a 1080p display at 15.6 inches, which a lot of people say is like almost perfect. You don't have to scale anything, but from my experience, I think maybe I'm used to higher DPI displays, like a 32-inch 4K monitor or a 13-inch 1080p display on the XPS. I've scaled things to about 75% or 66%, and I feel a lot more comfortable on it. It's a 1080p display, and it doesn't look as good because it's scaling a higher resolution down to a lower resolution, and it looks a bit fuzzy. But I just feel a lot more comfortable using a higher resolution. So I do wish if they probably would have provided an option with a higher resolution like 2K, which would be perfect for this size in my opinion. The colors are really nice on it. The viewing angles, it's an IPS display, it's very, very nice. The refresh rate is also very, very nice. It is very silky smooth when you're watching videos. Now, I did play some games at 48 Hz, so if you look at the recording, if I put it up on the video, you will see on the corner 48 Hz. At 48 Hz, there is some ghosting on the display, so it doesn't recover as fast. That's one of the bad things. It's not pointed towards gamers, so you probably wouldn't expect that, but it's fine. It's just a minor drawback. The keyboard has RGB backlighting, and you wanna get the drivers installed so you can mess about with it. You can actually go into the config file and just input the colors over there. I would say the only issue is it just doesn't work properly with the backlighting. They say they have 7 modes, but I can only use one. Maybe that's for different laptops. It doesn't have breathing. The only mode I've been able to use is just a single color mode, which is not very nice. But it does have different color modes, so I'm assuming the other modes are just different colors. You can change between the colors using the number pad on the side. And the keyboard also has some other functions like turning the backlight off. So you can actually turn the backlight off of the monitor on the LCD panel, which is very, very nice. The trackpad is much better than the previous one from the XPS 13 because it's a bit bigger. It also has multi-gesture and also the scroll function. So it's basically like future-proofed. So if you got the GNOME desktop and you want to do gestures, it'll work on that. It has a 49 watt-hour battery in it, and it has different power modes in the Tuxedo Control Center. You can actually lower the CPU usage, limit the CPU performance and get a much longer battery life. The other thing I want to mention is the Flexi charger function. Now, much like the Dell XPS 13, it does have a charge control of the battery, so you can limit the battery to only a certain level of charge, and then so I've got it set at charging to 80% only, and it doesn't work the same as XPS 13s, but it works and it's very, very useful if you want to preserve the life of the battery over a longer period of time. Okay, let's jump over to the desktop recording, and I will show you the fan curves that I've got on it and also the Tuxedo Control Center. Right, we're back in the dark. I'm just going to show you the profiles, so you can actually have the fans off like I've got. This is really useful and I really like this feature. So if you're gonna buy this laptop and install Arch Linux, you should install all of these. I recommend just installing them. There's no point like worrying about it later on, so just install all of that. But you can install the control center from here. So here are the profiles. If you go into the profiles over here, you can set them up differently. So you've got the one that's on right now. So you can see the indicator over here. So if I plug this in, it's going to switch on to the maximum performance one. And if it's on the battery life, running on the battery, which shows down here, it's going to run on this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit and show you what I've done. So if you want, you can do this to yours. So I've got the frequency limited to 1.8 gigahertz, and I've got this just turned off all the way down. I think it was probably, no, it's all at 0 over here. So I've got it on silent all the way down. I've got the webcam on. You can turn this off in the BIOS, so then nobody can access it. That's all I've done. So I've just limited it to 1.8 gigahertz using all of the threads and cores, power saving mode, and then put it on silent, and it's just select battery over here. So it will, whenever you unplug it and you're running on battery power, it will switch to this. So this just stays silent. It can just stay all silent. This way the CPU, even under load, doesn't really get that hot. So that's pretty cool. So you know, fans are off. That's the, I mean, I'm recording OBS right now. And look at the temperatures. It's 50 degrees, which is very nice. The other one is the maximum performance. I thought I'll just switch this on. I've just got maximum performance switched on, and it's in performance mode, and this is just normal left as it is. So it does turn on and keeps the device cool, and you know, it's just normal the way it is. But it does give you much better performance. It feels like you're using a desktop. So, and the lowest it actually goes to on this mode is 1.8 gigahertz. It doesn't go any lower than that, so that's interesting. The other one is movie mode, which I don't really use anymore, but this is basically the same as the silent one. So right now you won't hear it because it's on the fan is off, so that's very cool. It's very quiet. Yeah, I mean, it's very simple as that. Just make sure if you want to turn the fans off when they do get really loud, you can lower them down. You can have the fan curves on it so that it doesn't get annoying. Now I've been doing a lot on this laptop. I've been doing video rendering, raw image editing, all sorts of the stuff. I've been watching Ultra HD videos back at 120 FPS. There's just one thing I don't like about this laptop, and that is the fans. I know people say this is a very quiet laptop. It is for normal office use and all that. It's never really going to turn the fans on. You can actually limit the CPU down to 1.4 gigahertz or 1.8 gigahertz, and it'll be passively cooled because it just doesn't get that hot. So you won't even need the fans on. You can have it passively cooled, which is what I use when I'm watching movies and all that. But I'll have to mention this. It is very loud. It gets really loud when you're rendering raw images in RAW therapy, or if you're using Kdenlive to render some videos out, or Handbrake to transcode some videos. It does get really loud when the fans kick in, and it does get very annoying. That's the only bad thing I can mention. The rest of it is fine. It's a really nice laptop. The performance is amazing. It's like a desktop, but it's a laptop. I've replaced my desktop with this, so I've put my desktop away. I've got more space on the table here, and I'm just using this because the performance is right out about the same, or it's actually more better on this because it seems a bit more quicker, because it's a new CPU and that. So the desktop CPU I'm comparing this to is the Ryzen 7 1700 desktop CPU. So it's performance-wise, it's right on there. It's on par, so I'm really happy with that. So overall, I'm really happy with this laptop. I think I'm going to use it for a very long time. There are some things I would have wished, but that's primarily my decision for buying this. Like a high resolution display, you should have gone with a different option. You do have 1440 Quad HD displays on the other offerings from Tuxedo Computers. Apart from that, I don't really have any issues with it. It's amazing. It's really nice. I like the build quality. It's awesome. It's whatever. Anyways, thank you for watching. If I did miss anything out, just ask me in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in another video.